Hello. So I thought I'd have a go at talking through my Gameweek 17 team. I've been tinkering all week and overcomplicating things as I normally do. I was kind of planning to work on it like all through the World Cup, and I've ended up just leaving it to the last minute now because the World Cup was so enthralling in that. So just been working on it this week. Have been finding it like, yeah, I overcomplicate things, but wanted to try and simplify it down. So basically, we got 15 players to choose from, and the goal is to get as many points as possible. And if you start with like the easiest decisions, so like Haaland, one in there, don't even have to talk about it. That's one done, easy. Trippier, two. Not many people are going to argue with that. Got him quite cheap. Value tied up on him. Third highest point scorer in the game, highest defender, easy, done. So there's two. The next two who I think are pretty easy is Ward in goal, because he's cheap, 4 million. He's just going to sit on your bench for the main part, but he's also kind of decent. So he's a good cheap defender, and I think Andreas as well is like a really good value bench spot who can actually come in and get your points. He's got a double game week coming up, Fulham. So he might be. You could probably play him in that game week as well. The only question you could have with players like this is that sometimes there's an option where instead of having a cheap bench player and then just one outfield player, you could potentially like rotate. You could get like two 4.5s instead of a 4 and a 5 or something, and then rotate them. And for the same price, could that work out? I don't think it's worth it, but it's an option you could do. Same with like in midfield, you could have a 4.5 Andreas and an 8 mil mid, or you could have two 6 mil mids and rotate them. And I've been like massively geeking out in the last like couple of weeks, building all these pointless spreadsheets, trying to get a grasp of really like complicated questions. And so, but you can kind of test this. So with this one, Andreas and Saka, that's a 4.5 mil mid and an 8 mil mid, or you get two kind of 6 mil mids. What would work out best? And if you rotated them, and this is this little calculator I made that kind of tells you the best rotation method of the two. So here with Andreas and Saka, you basically just play Saka from game week 17 to 26. I'm just looking at a 10-week scale at the moment. And then you can rotate to Andreas in the double, and you end up with about 55 points. That's predicted points. Or you could do Odegaard and Rodrigo, and it tells you can kind of like rotate in this. If you rotate in that manner, when depending on their fixtures. So, you know, when Odegaard has got Newcastle and Tottenham, you go to Rodrigo. And when Rodrigo's got Man United and Chelsea and stuff, you go back to Odegaard. That apparently will get you 58 points if you do that. So it's an option. It's the same with Ward, some of the keepers as well. Like, you do have that possibility to think about. Now, I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't really like the benching headache of having to bench one of Rodrigo or Odegaard, or having to bench one of your good keepers every week. It's almost easier to just have these four players who just sit on your bench and do nothing, and you feel good about it. But the other thing about Ward as well is, like, say if I was going to do Ward, Danny Ward, and I was either thinking either De Gea or Kepa, and I'm probably going Kepa. They actually rotate anyway very well, those two. So Ward rotates very well with Kepa and De Gea to get like a maximal point. So when Kepa's playing Man City, you could play Ward against Fulham. And when Kepa's playing, well, it says when Kepa's playing Crystal Palace, Ward is better against Nottingham Forest, apparently. Only just, though. When Kepa plays Liverpool, you could play Ward against Brighton. Things like this. Yes, you got options. But they rotate quite well. So I'm probably just going to do Ward anyway. And while we're on the keepers, I think I'm going to go Kepa, which is what the popular choice is. I did go around the houses a bit. I wasn't sure about Chelsea's defence, but I've ended up on Kepa because I think he is the best of a limited bunch. So I've been geeking out massively. I've got this spreadsheet I've made that with this model of predicted points. It's not massively complicated. I mean, it is a bit overkill, but it's basically just based on, you've got the FPL points, season form, and then their 30-day form. The form at the moment doesn't count. There is no form at the moment. So I've just based it on FPL points, how many points they get per minute, multiplied by 90, or multiplied by how many minutes they get per start, basically, because some players don't play the full 90 minutes. Some players play less than that. And then you've also XGI. I've done a metric totally based on XGI and kind of worked out how many points they would get from that. It's a bit untested and stuff, but anyway, I've got a little model and I've been playing around with it. So, and according to this, Kepa does come out pretty good. The best is Ederson. Ederson's top choice, but Kepa's actually second choice. Ramsdale's third over the next 10 match days. And I'm pretty sure it's because of this double game week. That double game week is massive, just because he's just got 2 chances. Even though it's against Man City, one of those games is Man City, so you could say it's almost as good as a 0. But you might get 1 or 2 points, and then you get a clean sheet against Fulham maybe, or something like that. It's still, that's where all his extra points come from. Pardon me. So Kepa, yeah, I think I'm gonna go Kepa. I don't feel massively confident about Chelsea's defence, but I do feel like they'll probably improve under Potter in the next half of the season. And he's 4.5, and they may even have another double, because there's a possibility that Liverpool and Chelsea will be rescheduled in the next 10 game weeks. Sounds like he's probably going to start, will probably be nailed. So anyway, let's not overthink it too much. Kepa's in there. And then the next, who's next then? So that's the first 5. The next big question then is Salah or De Bruyne. There is a possibility I could get both, and I'll come on to that later, but if you're just trying to pick between one or the other, to me that's quite easy. I've always kind of lent De Bruyne anyway. I don't find it that much of a tough choice, because De Bruyne's points, I mean, by my model, De Bruyne comes out quite a lot higher than Salah over the next. He's like 9 points higher than Salah over the next. And again, this is my model. This is like, it could very well be wrong, but I'm kind of, the reason why I like my model is because it's based on the way that I think. Whenever I'm trying to choose between 2 players, I go through a certain mental process of looking at their XG, looking at this, looking at that, looking at their minutes, look at their fixtures, and then I run it through my head. And so all I've done is just automated the way that I normally think about these things. Whereas with other people's reviews, I don't know how they've worked it out. So other people's models. But anyway, KDB comes out on top. Yeah, so I was just playing around with some of their other numbers, KDB and Salah, because KDB is averaging about 7.2 points a game, but yeah, every 90 minutes so far, whereas Salah's on about 6 points a minute, 6 points per game. So KDB's performing much better at the moment, and there was this sense of like, well, he had a bad first half of the season, but the second half he started playing better. But I don't actually see that in the data. If anything, he's actually gone down. His XGI in the first half of the season was 0.74. Second half was 0.64. He had some big hauls in that was the Bournemouth game there. Got a high XG but just didn't score. And this is his kind of cumulative XGI throughout the season, and it's like it hasn't really picked up. It's just kind of carried on as normal. Even though he's playing more centrally in the second half, his XGI hasn't actually gone up yet. I don't think. I mean, it does that. This is just FB ref data. And KDB is just performing better. What was I going to say about that? Yeah, so there's this whole narrative of like, well, Salah, he's on penalties and he scores more. He gets more goals rather than assists. and all this kind of stuff. But all I really care about is points, FPL points at the end of the day. And KDB's getting them. I don't know where he's getting them from, but he's getting them at a higher rate than Salah, and that's all I really care about at the end of the day. So, there's another idea of like, well, Salah's going to be rested now, but then we kind of had that narrative at the start of the season where he was like, it was AFCON, that was why he was tired. Now, start of the season, he's rested, boom, he's in there, he's going to be really good, and he wasn't. And so all the same narratives have been the case all season so far. There is a narrative of maybe Liverpool might be a bit more resurgent. They're trying to rectify for a bad start. Is possible. And I mean, I really like Salah. I would love to have him in my team, but again, it's the choice of like Salah or KDB, and I just prefer KDB, even though Salah's awesome. I'd love to have him in my team. It's just, and I might be able to get him in my team. But anyway, on that one, it's quite easy for me. Is KDB is better, I think. Yeah. Another one that's quite easy is Darwin up front. I find that pretty easy. He's not a defender, he's a forward. Darwin straight in. His XG, let's have a look. This is all the XGI of all the players in the Premiership so far. Haaland at the top, 1.20. Darwin second, 1.04 XGI, expected goal or assist every game. He's expected something. And some people say yes, but he's underperforming. He's got the high expected goals, but he keeps missing his goals. He's shooting wide and all this kind of stuff. But his actual goals and assists is exactly the same, 1.04. His delta is 0, according to FBref. 5 goals and 2 assists in 7 games is like really good. So I think he looks amazing. I don't think he's underperforming or anything like that. He looks like he's just right on schedule. Delta is 0. Haaland's overperforming, but then I think that's probably more likely just because he's a very good finisher. But don't know, we'll see. So Darwin's in for me, easy one. He's like, Darwin and Haaland are like the best players in the game at the moment, or best forwards at least. So that's quite an easy one for me. Then the other one, and again, I was getting the forwards finished was quite key to me, because at first I tried to get Kane in there, and there's this choice for this third forward slot that you can either go, oopsie daisy, get rid of that. You can either go for Kane, squeeze Kane in there, or you go for this kind of like 6-7 mil range of Mitrovic, Wilson, Martial, or Nketiah, or somebody like that. And originally I tried to get Kane in there, and I was able to. The only way I could do it was by having a cheap defence. I was trying to figure out if that's worth it, or whether to just go for Martial, Wilson, or Nketiah. And I'm gonna stick with my plan at the moment. So it's either Martial, Wilson, or Nketiah. At the moment, I'm kind of going for Nketiah because he's got at least 1 double game week, maybe 2. Also, kind of cheap, kind of differential. Less people will go for him. I'm kind of leaning towards him. I think he is looking good. I'll get into that in a minute. So, yeah, I probably shouldn't put him there until I've kind of explained it. But, well, yeah, no, let me go into it. So, Nketiah, so I was looking into some comparisons. This season, Nketiah is not looking great, but he's only had 152 minutes, so it's not. He's 0.51. He's all right. That's still good in 152 minutes. That's XG, but it's a low sample size. Martial this season looks amazing, but he's only 201 minutes, so again, small sample size. And Callum Wilson's doing really well on 0.78, but again, relatively small sample size. Callum Wilson's doing all right. Mitrovic is great, but last season, Nketiah with over 800 minutes got 0.67 XGI, and that was his delta was pretty much 0 as well. So looking good last season. I don't really remember it much, but he must have stepped in a few times, and he's looking good, and he was looking better than Wilson and Martial. Yeah, and the problem with Martial and Wilson, I find, is my memory of my memory of both of them is not great. Martial just seems like a kind of decent winger. I've never thought of him as like a Darwin, Haaland kind of territory striker. I see him as just this decent winger who's going to, like a Saka or whatever, he's just going to tick along at 0.5. He is historically, he's 0.6 an average or something over his career, 0.5, 0.6. That's pretty good. He's good. He's a fine option. And it's a very tricky one between these three. Callum Wilson as well. It's about 0.5, 0.6-ish over his career. Pretty good. Nketiah's young, but he's doing about the same as well, though. He hasn't not as much data, but still. The thing about Callum Wilson and Martial that you might not... Well, you probably do know, but I looked into it, is Callum Wilson's injury record over the last 5 seasons. He has missed about 42% of the last 5 seasons he's missed through injury. That's his injury record. It's like well high. And Martial's is 33% over the last 5. This is just transfer market data. Yeah. So that's quite high. And you might think, well, injury doesn't really matter because if a player's injured, you just transfer him. If he gets injured, then you just transfer him. And that's kind of true. But one, you're using up a transfer, which I'm going to get on later, is they're quite valuable, I think. And then secondly, quite often we don't find out that a player's injured until the lineups come out and we're suddenly like, oh, our player's not playing, and we get blank 0 points. And then in the press conference later, the manager says, yeah, he was injured in the warm-up or injured in training. So you do sometimes get that. I've had that experience, a few times with like Callum Wilson just suddenly not playing or not being taken off after 45 minutes. So that is a slight concern. Not major, but a slight concern. I think the main thing with Nketiah that I like is just the double game week. Man United, Newcastle won't have anything, although Callum Wilson's not playing in Europe, which I kind of like, but he's a bit more expensive, so it kind of balances out a little bit. But Nketiah has got that double game week, but then he does block a Saka spot. This spot I'm not settled with, but let's just stick with Nketiah for now. That's where I'm at for now, because Martial's got a good fixtures. The first, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, feel good. And the thing about Martial is, because Man United's defence is a bit depleted, I wonder whether they're going to need to score, have more focus in attack. It might be like cricket score territory where they concede 2, they're going to have to score 3. Or it might be that Ten Hag says we're all going to have to defend more, and they actually score less because they're going to have to defend to support the defence. I don't know how it's going to work out, but there is a possibility that Martial and Rashford could do a lot of damage. But again, if Man United haven't got double game week fixtures, I don't really want to book too many transfers in if I can help it. So Nketiah's staying there for now. Another spot, Martinelli is quite nailed. There is an option. I got him at 6 mil, so I've got money tied up in him. There is an option that I could go for Odegaard. And according to my model and lots of other XGI data, Odegaard looks a lot better. He's predicted 57 points there. Martinelli's only 48 points. He's quite high up. He's like the 4th highest out of all my options there, Odegaard. And I think his XG data is looking pretty good. Let's have a look at it now. Martin Odegaard and Martinelli. Let's have a look at these two. The thing I noticed though with Odegaard is that he hasn't consistently been on this kind of 0.6 range, 0.7-ish XGI kind of range. He's normally on about 0.3. He's done it one season before for Vitesse, but he's normally about a 0.3 man, and back there, but normally about a 0.3 man. So I don't know if it's the norm for him, whether he's just having a good season. Whereas Martinelli, not huge amounts of data, but he's been 0.4, 0.5. He's kind of averaged 0.5 every season. it just his data looks a little bit better. And we know what Martinelli's like without a Jesus up front, with just a Lacazette up front, and he's about as good as he is this season. I think he will just carry on. It was the reason I put him in my matchday 1 team, because he just looked really good last season when he played. So, and then there's also talk of like, well, how will Martinelli be when Jesus is out? I kind of feel like he's more likely to play more attacking. There'll be more pressure on him to get goals. And there is an option that he could go up front, which is maybe a downside on having Nketiah. I don't know how nailed his minutes are. But with Martinelli, I think I fancy that Martinelli, I'm going to stick with him, even though Odegaard's playing great. I think I'm going to stick with Martinelli and bet that Odegaard might just fall back a little bit. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because Odegaard's captain and he's just stepping up a bit more. Don't know. It's a possibility I could go to Odegaard there. But at the moment, I'm sticking with Martinelli. So that'll be all right. Let's go to Almiron next. Where's my Almiron? These midfield, the 2 midfield slots are here. There's Miggy Almiron, which I think is just going to go in. I had Almiron in my Gameweek 1 team. He was my Gameweek 1 punt because he was doing brilliantly in pre-season. He was like the best in pre-season, and I thought, I know, I'll be a right old smart ass, and I'll put him in my team, and he'll score me loads of points. And then he didn't get anything for ages, so I took him out, and then he scored, and then I couldn't get him back in again after that because I had too many other fires to put out. So I kind of have this feeling like, I've got to get him now that I've got the opportunity. And he is decent, but yeah, I think he's not necessarily nailed. Like, you don't have to go for him, but he looks pretty good. I mean, there by that metric, he's actually coming out 11th, not that highly. But what have I just set the thingy to? I just set it to XGI, just XGI. If I include their actual FPL points, 50-50, so it's just the data is now based on XGI data and half XGI data and half FPL points data. He comes out a lot higher now, like 55 points, because he was getting some good points. I guess it includes bonus points and things like that in the metric now. Might be a better way to look at it. But yeah, he comes out pretty good. Who are the best midfielders then? So you got, KDB. Phil Foden is keeps coming out as second best behind KDB, and it's so annoying. If he was going to play, if he was nailed, I would desperately get him in my team, but I just don't know if he's going to start. That's the problem. Now, even if he lost, the difference between Foden and some of these 8 mils, Kulusevski, even if Foden missed two games, he could still outscore Kulusevski, and he's got they got a double game week, two double game weeks, so it might be worth it for Foden. I do like the possibility. He's still batting around my head, but it's just his minutes, and also his delta is quite high. So where is he? Philip Foden. There he is. There. His XGI is actually 0.56, even though he's got his actual goals and assists is 1.09, up in Darwin territory. But his actual XGI is 0.56. I'm never quite sure whether that means he's overperforming or whether he's just a good finisher. But I kind of sense with Foden it's a bit of both. I think he's probably a good finisher. I guess you'd have to look through his historic XGI. Can we do that? Is his historic delta. He underperformed that season, overperformed there, overperformed there, under, massively over. Hard to tell really. I don't know. My sense is that he might drop back off a little bit. Maybe it's a hope because I don't have him in my team, but still, Foden's really exciting. Would love to get him in. Not sure if I can. Salah is third. So Salah's, it would be great if I had unlimited money. I'd get Salah in there. Odegaard 4th. Rodrigo, fifth. Rodrigo keeps popping up in all my models as well as being really, really decent. Even if I just go 100% XGI and just forget his thingy form, his FPL form, he's still fifth. He still comes out really high. So his XGI is pretty good as well. Yeah. So Rodrigo and Foden and Salah are all these names that are people who I don't have in my team at the moment, and I kind of feel like I would like them. And Odegaard. I've only got one of the top 5 in my team at the moment. But then Miggy's 6th over the next 10 game weeks. Martinelli's down there. Saka's in there. Kulu's 9th, all in the top 10. And Trossard is in the 10th. So, yeah. So at the moment I've got Miggy in there. But he could change to Rodrigo. I thought I had this settled, and then as soon as I started filming and talking and thinking about it again, I'm unsettled again. I need to think about those 2 slots, though, of midfield I need to think about. But at the moment, last I left it, I think I was thinking of Kulusevski going in there. Because Tottenham have the double game week as well. Let's leave it like that for now. And then defence. So because I'm not going for Kane, I've got some money now. So Cancelo is the best defender. You want to get him in there. I need to get a cheap defender other than Nico Williams to just sit on the bench. And at the moment, I'm thinking it's either Bueno or Patterson. And I think I'm going to go Patterson, even though I like Bueno. He's quite exciting. He looks exciting. He's getting loads of crosses. Got some attacking potential. Wolves might be rejuvenated under the new manager. They might want to tighten things up in defence. He could be a good option. But he's going to be sitting on my bench anyway, so I'm not too fussed. And Patterson's got a potential double game week with Arsenal versus Everton coming up soon. Potentially, maybe. So he might be an option to bring in. I think he's slightly more nailed than Bueno. I don't know whether Bueno will be nailed when I think it's 8 Nori could take his place. I'm not sure. But Patterson's got competition with Coleman, and he seems to be winning that battle. So I think Patterson's nailed. So he will come in. And then the other 2 slots are, again, I've just been kind of going by my model. First is Cancelo. Second is Trippier, obviously. And then Gabriel keeps coming up, keeps scoring really, really highly. So Gabriel, I think I want to get in there. Now, ideally, I'd actually prefer Zinchenko to Gabriel, personally. And I'm debating this. Like, I've heard Football London, who I don't know, I think they're kind of respected. I've heard other people quote them sometimes. They said that Zinchenko is recovering from a calf injury, although Football London understands Arsenal are confident he will be fit for the fixture against West Ham. That's what they say. They understand that Arsenal are confident he'll be fit for the fixture against West Ham. Zinchenko didn't play in any of the friendlies, but that could be because they're just giving him as much time as possible to recover. I think he had like a chunk of time out earlier in the season and then just came straight back, like without any kind of like coming in for a few minutes or anything like that. He just came straight back. So he might come back. And I just think he would be much better than Gabriel. And nobody's really talking about him that much. But his injury rate is also quite high. Where's Zinchenko? He misses on average over the last 5 seasons about 25%, 26%. So it's, not quite as bad. But he's got quite... I didn't realise his injury rate was that high. So it's maybe a bit of a risk. So I might just stick with Gabriel. It's fine, it's safe. I know Arsenal got some tough fixtures, but again, I'm trying to build a team that I don't have to make any changes for the next 10 game weeks, because the next game weeks about 21, 22 to 26, Arsenal have much better fixtures. I don't really want to put too many bank too many transfers in. So Gabriel is in there. Over the first 3 or the first 5 fixtures, Gabriel still comes out quite highly anyway, so not too bothered. And then Reece James is fifth. Reece James is in there. Oh no, so who's fourth? Did I miss one? Oh yeah, Zinchenko. Zinchenko's fourth, and then Reece James is fifth. He comes out quite high. But that, I think, is mainly because of the double game week. That's where he gets all his points from. And so the big question with Reece James is, will he play every one of these games? That seems kind of unlikely, because earlier in the season, when Chilwell came back, they started managing his minutes, and Potter said that. And I think he said that about Chilwell, or maybe some other players. When they come back from an injury, he starts managing their minutes. He doesn't want to overuse them too much. So I guess it depends on the injury. But Reece James, will he play all those games? Probably not. And if he doesn't, you've got to knock 5 points off of that, which means, somebody else might be better suited. I could go double Arsenal in defence, but don't really want to do that. There's the Man United defenders, Dalot, but I think he might be injured, hamstring, bit of a doubt, not sure he's going to play. He would be quite a good choice, or Luke Shaw. But all the Man United defenders by my models come out really low scoring. And I thought that was weird. And I looked back through their data in Premier League, and it kind of, Man United have been a little bit underwhelming. He's only had one assist, Dalot, all season, even though he's played like almost every single game. One assist, is this the person people are getting excited about? I'm not sure. One sec. Sorry, yeah. So Dalot, so I'm not sure. I mean, I like the idea of him. I thought he was good when I started match day. My game week 1 team, I remember thinking of him quite highly. So maybe he had a good season last season. Although he didn't get any goals or assists last season either. So why did I think he was good, and why do people think he's good? He doesn't seem to get much at all. And then also on top of that, Man United's defence has been, their XGA, their goals against per game, is not that good. It's like 1.2, which is like kind of average. It's in the middle. Man City and Arsenal are 0.8, and Fulham's 1.8. So they're not that great, and maybe that's why they're not, appearing very high. And it was the same with Rashford. A lot of people talking about him, and I thought, oh yeah, he looks really good. Whenever he plays, he looks quite good. Then I look back through his season. He hasn't actually had that much. 4 goals, 2 assists. It's all right. It's nothing amazing. And again, my model doesn't really rate him that highly. He's all right, but he's not that great. So is he really going to perform as great as people think he is? I guess they're expecting him to play better. There is a sense of Man United are kind of a bit more resurgent now. They're going to change things up a bit. Yeah, maybe. But so the Man United though, they've got great fixtures. They're playing I've got any Man United people here. They're playing Nottingham Forest, Wolves, Bournemouth. Then they've got Man City and Arsenal. But those first 3 look really good. But then they've got a depleted defence, haven't they? Because Varane's out and Martinez is out. Dalot might be injured. Maguire might be ill. Got no players left. So, yeah, not sure about Man United. So I might just go Reece James for now. Join the club. There is this other player called Romain Perrault, which I've heard a few people talk about, and his numbers actually look all right. For a defender, he's 4.4. He's had 2 goals, 2 assists already, and their fixtures look quite nice. Let me just stick him in here. See his fixtures. His fixtures are Brighton, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Aston Villa, Brentford, Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds, Leicester. I don't know. It's just like, and they got a new manager. It's just a little possible there, Romain Perrault. I don't think I'm going to go for him, but it doesn't feel like a big enough name, and it's Southampton. But he is very attacking. He might not be nailed. Just an option for some people, maybe. So, for lack of other options, I think I'm just going to go James in there. Even if he misses a few, Because again, the other thing with James is that he's only had 1 goal and 1 assist all season, and Potter does rotate a lot. He was playing at right centre back at one point. Potter might kind of rest him a few times. They might not want to overuse him, might not rush him in too much. And Chelsea's defence also has been like Man United's and Liverpool's. It's like it's not been that great. Chelsea are 1.4. They're even worse than Man United. It's like that's quite bad. 1.4 XGA. It's towards the bottom. So, and I've got double Chelsea defence. So I don't feel great about that. And this is why I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go. So there's the whole team. Look, I've done it. And this is why I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go Kane and then just go cheap defence, because I don't feel massively great about Cancelo, James, Gabriel I quite like, but he's got tough fixtures. Don't feel great about them. Maybe I just go Kane and have a cheap defence. Or I could also do Salah. Is another option as well. I just noticed just a minute ago. Both of them are about the same jump up. From an 8 mil to a Salah is about 4.8 mil. And from Mitrovic to Kane is about 4.8 mil as well. So it's the same kind of thing. So let's say I do Kulusevski to Salah. That looks nice. And then I sacrifice Cancelo and I put Bueno in there. Kinder Bueno. Oops. And I put Bueno in there. That's now this looks nice. It also solves my bench headache, because now I've got 3 clear bench players: Andreas, Bueno, and Patterson, with Ward on the bench. Whereas before I had, with Cancelo and Kulusevski, would have had to bench one of my. I would have had 12 decent players. I would have only had Patterson and Andreas on the bench, and that's tricky. Like, according to my model, I should bench Nketiah on game week 17, which feels like something counterintuitive, like I shouldn't do. So I could do something like that, or do Kulusevski again, put Kulu back in there. I could put Kulusevski back in there and then go Kane. But then the problem with Kane is that he's got the 4 yellow cards. Oh, I can't do that, apparently. So I'd have to make another cutback somewhere. Must have done this some other how. So, I mean, maybe Salah. That did feel quite nice. Kane. Now, Tottenham got the double game weeks, so having 2 Tottenham would have been nice. They've got 1 double game week. Yeah, I think it's just the 1. So, yeah, what about that? Midfield, put Salah in there. Solves the bench headache. I've got no Cancelo, but it does mean that I've got the option to go to Foden if he does start playing and starts smashing it in again. The downside of this is that I've got no money in the bank, no flexibility, and this was the problem I was having with going for freemium, is no flexibility. I pursued price changes in the first half of the season. I don't normally, but I did this season. And so I think that's kind of paid off a little bit at this stage of the season. I've just lost my team. Twat. I've got 104.3 million, my team value. And so I think that's where it's kind of like paid off. So I may as well make the most of it. Yeah. Sorry. Just wasted. Actually, I'm going to pause it and just put my team back in. Don't want to waste it. Yeah, sorry. So there's the team. Yeah, so I just need to think about it. I do like it, like having Salah and De Bruyne. I like the idea of having Salah in there, and I could potentially get rid of James if I wanted to get a bit more flexibility and a bit more money. I'm not massively overconfident with James, just because I think he's not going to play all those games. And I don't think his ceiling is that good. I mean, his past seasons, last season he had a really good season, 5 goals and 9 assists, but he's never really done it any other season. I don't know whether it's I can't really remember, but last season he did really well. But it doesn't look like he's done it any other season particularly. He is doing quite well this season, 0.3ish, which is good for a defender. So he's still decent. But yeah, will he play all those games? What's Potter's Chelsea going to be like? I could go somebody else, even like a Perot or something like that. Go for some kind of weird punt. I don't know, but might give me some flexibility. Then there's also the question of like price points that people sometimes point out about. Now Salah and De Bruyne are not terrible because technically I could just go to anybody in that Salah spot. Although I say that I'm probably not going to, am I? But I could go to a Foden or even a Rodrigo. Although I'd rather go from Almiron to Rodrigo. I don't know. See, I'm probably going to be thinking right up to the last minute. If I had Perot in there, see, if I just went for like Perot, just went cheap in the back, now I've got 1.4 in the bank. I could do Almiron to Rodrigo if I wanted as well at some point. Still some flexibility there. Don't know. It's tricky. But yeah, so most of these are nailed though. So Haaland, Darwin, De Bruyne, Kepa I think is nailed. Ward, Trippier. These two defensive spots, Patterson, Bueno. I think at least one of them. Martinelli over Odegaard. I think I will stick with that. Still things I might look into, but that's where I'm leaning at the moment. Gabriel and Zinchenko, would love Zinchenko. If I get any clue that he's going to start, I'll go jump on him, but I think I'm going to have to play safe and go Gabriel for now. Andreas, yeah, I'll probably stick with that. Yeah, and then it's like this slot. Yeah, do you go Cancelo and Kulu, or Nketiah and Salah? That's the difference, because if I had Cancelo and Kulu, Nketiah would be subbed. He'd have to sit on my bench, which seems like a waste. Unless I went like Sam Greenwood and updated somebody else somewhere, but so that's the calculation. I think I did it here somewhere. Nketiah, maybe I didn't. Cancelo and Kulu. Yeah, that was it. It was here. I think I was using Wilson's numbers because they're a bit more reliable than Nketiah's because he hasn't got many minutes. And it comes out about even. Didn't actually make much difference. Unless I use XGI. And then it comes out a bit better if it's just based on XGI. Don't know, it's a tricky one. Anyway, only other thing I think I was going to mention is price changes I was curious about. Obviously the prices are all frozen over the unlimited transfers, but once the Game Week 17 opens, I'm imagining the next day price changes will change again, and they'll probably reflect all the changes that occurred over the unlimited. I think players can only change by 0.1 per day or anyway or something like that. So I don't think we're going to see mammoth changes, but I assume. But it is still interesting to kind of note which players might go up, and I'm guessing this is what's going to happen. So you've got like Reece James, Rashford, Darwin, Martial, Tony. Loads of people buying Tony still. He's due to be suspended at any moment potentially. Luke Shaw, Almiron, Danny Ward, Bueno, Odegaard, Greenwood. Possibly some of these other people: Kane, Gabriel, Haaland, De Gea, Trippier. Some of these people might go up, and going down, Foden and Zaha. So, I mean, that's maybe reason to not jump on Foden Game Week 17 and just wait a bit. Cancelo is actually close to going down there by the looks of it. Martinelli is probably not going to go down, but he might. He's not looking great. So yeah, a lot of my players I'm thinking of bringing in could go up in price as well. So that's another thing to think about potentially. Yeah, so I think I've waffled on enough. So I'm still not settled, but that's just my thinking on the whole thing at the moment. The one other thing I was going to say. Sorry, one other thing is, so all these double game weeks. Ben Crellin's the man to go to. He's very good. I nicked that from him. He's so you can see where these double game weeks are going to come in. And this isn't very user friendly. I haven't really done very good graphics here or anything like that. But I was just trying to think of like the transfers. You got here's the game weeks for the next 10 because I'm thinking I might wildcard 27 and as we get into the blanks and the doubles. So that's like a nice kind of like 10 game weeks. And these are all the teams that might have doubles. This is all very unlikely. There could be a Arsenal Everton in here somewhere. Could be a Brighton Bournemouth, something like that. Chelsea Liverpool might need to be put somewhere. Don't know if they'll happen. Liverpool Wolves is a possible, but I don't know if they're going to happen or not. But when you start kind of thinking about having how many players you're going to have for these doubles. Originally, when I had my Kane team, I was only managing about 4 players per double game week. Whereas when I have a flexible team, I can actually I can boost my bench and stuff, and I can actually end up with like 6 players for every double game week. This isn't very clear to see, but yeah. So having a flexible team though, these transfers get used up quite quick, and having a flexible team and money in the bank and stuff can help. I think I'm probably going to end up with like one slot. Like I was thinking of Rashford there, but the Kulu to Saka. One slot will end up being the one that this one, which I'll rotate depending on whoever's got the double game week, and maybe this one might rotate whoever's got the double game week. Things like that. Anyway, I'm waffling too much, so I will leave it there. And happy Christmas. See you later. Bye bye.